Okay, so chapter 5 of Atonement is where we get a real sort of change in tone. It's focusing a lot on Lola and it's focusing a lot on Paul Marshall. So the innocence is starting to disappear. I suppose the sexual overtones are starting to come in because remember McEwan, sort of through Bridey's style, he's actually looking back here at this situation that ends up being a very key situation in the later events of the book. Okay, so what we get about a quarter of the way down page 56 is Bridey sort of running off basically, okay, going to give the nettles a good thrashing as Paul Marshall says, and it describes Lola sort of seen her, and Lola sort of looks at her and thinks that she did not look as if she was about to come back. So there's those two words again, come back. Okay, remember that key motif that goes throughout the novel. Okay, there's that idea that actually Bridey has lost some innocence, she's seen the scene by the fountain, and already things have changed, already things have developed. Bridey's run off, things have changed, she won't come back. That's set alongside Lola and Paul Marshall in the scene, and that real, well, the sexual imagery that's used throughout here to show that a lot of the innocence has disappeared. We get Lola about halfway down opening a briefcase, and we get the polished metal was cool, her touch left little patches of shrinking condensation, just like that shrinking wet patch after the fountain. Very similar image, again it's sexualised. The clap started as it sprang up with a loud chunky sound. Okay, so it's something that, you know, on the face of it should be very innocent, but it's described in that slightly sexualised way, which is what we get a lot with Lola and what we get a lot with Paul Marshall. That continues on page 58, where we get the sort of first meeting really between Lola and Paul Marshall, and he tells them he's staying in a room along the corridor, and about, I don't know, 3/4 of the way down, Lola says, "I know, Auntie Venus's room." Okay, so he's actually staying in the room where Bridey ends up staying at the end of Atonement. Okay, so when she goes back and watches Trials of Arabella, she's doing that, but she's staying in a room that Paul Marshall was in. Things are tainted. Okay, so when we look at that line, she's not going to come back. Actually, even when she does go back to watch that play again, when she does return to her childhood home, there's that idea that things aren't completely the same. Things have changed. What we get about halfway down page 60 is Paul Marshall being woken up basically during a quite uncomfortable dream about his younger sister. So again, he's set up as his predatory, dangerous, sexualised figure. And straight after that, he thinks about Lola, and he says she's quite the little pre-Raphaelite princess with her bangles and tresses, her painted nails and velvet choker. All those things that have been described in Lola's sort of description, you know, in the way that she's been set up. Paul Marshall's noticed, and remember that choker, it's a symbol of her entrapment, but also of a sort of sexuality. Okay, so Lola is both villain and victim here. Bottom of page 61, Jackson and Pirro, who were presented much more positively than Lola, comment on Paul Marshall's job, you know, as this chocolate millionaire is described. And it says very simply, they knew that an adult had no business with sweets. Okay, in that sentence we've got side by side adult and sweet, very, very childish image alongside this, you know, literally an adult image. And that's what we're getting a lot with Paul Marshall, isn't it? Okay, this real contrast between the childhood innocence and then him as this much more dangerous figure. Okay, so what his job is something that is allowing him lots of money through people suffering in the war. It's also something that doesn't seem quite right. Okay, it's an adult around these very, very childish images. When we get to 62, the last page of the chapter, about 3/4 of the way down, he crossed and uncrossed his legs. Again, it's sexualised, it's dangerous. But actually Lola, when, you know, we see her, she uncrosses her legs as well. So on the one hand, he is this dangerous threat. On the other hand, he sort of met his match in Lola. And at the end, when they're much older, Lola actually seems like the stronger one. Okay, so it's a bit of an uncomfortable relationship there. We're not quite sure how far is he taking away her childhood, how far is he this evil rapist, and how far is she kind of, you know, aware of it, and how far is she sort of to blame for what goes afterwards as well. As it carries on, you know, we get the description of Lola eating the chocolate, and again, it's deliberately sexualised by McEwan. It's deliberately uncomfortable. It cracked loudly as it yielded to her unblemished incisors. Okay, tainted innocence, isn't it? Okay, white teeth, that are unstained, that are innocent, but alongside this image of chocolate that comes from Paul Marshall. It's that metaphor for him again, tainting the childhood that comes. Okay, and then when Bridey does return to the room, it's the room that he stayed in. He's his character, essentially, who for childhood is a threat, but actually who has tainted it. When they return to that childhood, his presence is still there. He's still there. He's still tainting it as the novel sort of continues. Okay, so that's chapter 5 of Atonement.